A royal showdown has erupted in Ife. Ebony's family has stormed the council with a stinging question: at whose expense must this marriage continue? They are accusing the Great Lion of failing to protect Ebony, while the Odua Traditional Council exposes a dark secret involving a secret trip to Ghana and a forbidden secret tree planted to destroy the jewel's happiness. May every negative plant intended to stop your fruitfulness be uprooted by the fire of truth. Amen. We have deep respect for our sacred Yoruba culture. Therefore, we use fictional names for certain rituals and titles. Keep watching and the mysteries will become clear as we go on. Crown of the Palace. You are watching Crown Gist, where the throne speaks and we listen. If you are not yet a subscriber, you are missing out on the deepest royal secret that nobody else dares to talk about. Subscribe now and hit that bell to join our Crown Gist friends and families. My Crown Gist friends and families, the atmosphere in Ife is currently vibrating with a frequency that suggests a massive explosion is about to happen. This is not just a palace quarrel, this is a full-blown war of accountability. The family of Ebony has officially stood before the Igbimo Abada, and the words they are dropping are like hot lead. They are not coming with a plea for peace, they are coming with an accusation of total failure. They are looking the Great Lion and the Ife elders in the face and asking a question that is echoing through the halls: at whose expense? The family is arguing that the version of Ebony the world sees today, the one being called problematic, the one being accused of rituals, the one being called uncontrollable, is a product of the palace's failure to protect her. They claim that before Ebony was handed over to the royal house of Ogunjaye, she was a paragon of virtue. They describe her as a well-behaved, respectful and protected young woman who only became broken because the Great Lion refused to be her shield. They are screaming that if she had been protected enough, if her husband had cared enough to guide her spirit and her movements, she would never have behaved the way she has. Can you imagine the weight of this emotion, my Crown Gist friends and families? They are basically saying the Great Lion allowed her to be spiritualized and influenced by the wrong people just so he could have a reason to distance himself from her. They are painting the king as a man who watched his wife walk into a dark forest and simply folded his arms because his heart was already with the jewel. This is a heavy burden to place on any man, let alone the Kabiesi of a great kingdom. They are insisting that her downfall is actually his indifference. But as they were speaking, the Odua Traditional Council began to stir. You could see the elders shaking their heads because there is another side to this story that the family is trying to hide under a blanket of pity. The council members began to ask, when did a grown woman's character become the sole responsibility of her husband? They pointed out that Ebony is not a toddler. She's a woman who has her own associates, her own water spirit people, and her own secret councils. The most intense part of this opening confrontation is the focus on the jewel. The council reminded the family that while they are busy accusing the king of neglect, they are ignoring the fact that Ebony has been the primary aggressor against the jewel. They noted that the jewel has never once come out to attack Ebony. She has never told the king not to marry anyone else. She has stayed in her lane, minding her business and protecting her peace. So why, the elders asked, is the family trying to blame the king for Ebony's choice to wage a spiritual war against a woman who has done her no harm? The suspense is building because the elders are starting to bring up the Ghana incident. They are hinting that Ebony's behavior wasn't just lack of protection, but a deliberate search for power outside the borders of Nigeria. They are asking how a well-behaved girl suddenly finds the coordinates to a forbidden sacred tree in another country just to use it against her husband's house. This is the moment where the family's narrative started to crack. The room is hot, the spirits are high, and the truth is trying to claw its way out of the earth. Everything about this case is pointing to a deep spiritual calculation. The family says the Great Lion is the living deity who should have seen it coming, but the council is saying that Ebony herself opened the door for Baba Bambushe to enter. Who is telling the truth? Is the king a silent accomplice, or is Ebony a woman who simply lost her way in the pursuit of a shadow?
The air in the council chamber has turned into ice. The elders are looking at each other because the accusation is no longer just about a native doctor. It is now a question of the king's very soul. This is where the story gets very dark and the suspense becomes almost too much to handle. The council moon was silent enough to hear a pin drop when one of the Ife elders stood up. He didn't look at the family, he looked at the floor as if he was reading the secrets of the earth. He began to speak about the sacred tree. According to the latest reports, this wasn't just any plant, this was a specific species brought all the way from the deep shrines of Ghana. The allegation is that Ebony didn't just stumble upon this, she actively sought it out. She was seen swearing an oath before this sacred tree, asking that the jewel should never again carry a child for the great lion. The elders asked the family a question that made them freeze. You say she was not protected, but how do you protect a woman who secretly leaves the country to find a weapon against her own house? They revealed that Ebony had been working with water spirit groups, people who specialize in the dim things of the dark. They argued that if the great lion had restricted her, the world would have called him a tyrant. But because he gave her freedom, she used that freedom to travel to Ghana and bring back a tree of sorrow. The family tried to jump in, screaming that she was influenced by Baba Bambushe to do it. They claim she didn't know the implications of the sacred tree. They are insisting that the great lion, as the living deity, should have used his spiritual powers to block her path or telepathically warn her to stop. But the council fired back with a heavy truth. They said a king is a husband, not a spiritual policeman. If a wife decides to plant a tree of death in the garden of her heart, the husband can only watch until the fruit is ripe for judgment. My Crown G's friends and family, can you feel the intensity? The drama is no longer just about who said what. It is about a spiritual battle for the future of the Ogundiaye lineage. The family is painting Ebony as a victim of lack of love, saying that if the great lion had cherished her like he cherishes the jewel, she would never have felt the need to go to Ghana for a sacred tree. They are saying the king's indifference is the real soil where this evil tree grew. But the council wasn't finished. They brought up the silence of Baba Bambushe. They noted that the man hasn't said a word to defend himself. Is he silent because he is guilty? Or is he silent because he knows that Ebony was the one driving the car while he was just a passenger? The confusion is massive. People are asking why a well-behaved girl would even know how to find such a powerful native doctor in the first place. The elders are suspecting that this relationship with Baba Bambushe started way before she even entered the palace. The suspense is building like a volcano. The elders are now demanding that the location of this sacred tree be revealed. They want to know where it was planted and what other rituals were performed under its branches. The family is looking nervous because they know that if the Egemo Akbada finds that tree, the spiritual evidence will be enough to banish anyone involved forever. The great lion is just sitting there, his eyes fixed on the family, waiting to see how far they will go with their lies. The family is now claiming that the great lion's silent complicity was a way to set Ebony on. They believe he knew about the Ghana trip and the sacred tree, but he let her do it so he could catch her red-handed. They are calling it a royal trap. They say he wanted her to commit an unpardonable sin against the throne, so that even the Ife elders would have no choice but to support her removal.
The great lion did not roar, but his voice carried a weight that made the pillars of the council chamber tremble. He looked at the family of Ebony with eyes that seemed to see through their very souls. He asked them one simple, bone-chilling question. If a traveler chooses to follow a path leading to a cliff because they are chasing a shadow, is it the fault of the ground that they fell, or the fault of the eyes that refuse to see the light? The great lion began to pull back the curtain on what he had really been seeing. He admitted that yes, he is the Kabiesi, the one who sees when others are blind. But he explained that being a king does not mean he is a prison warden for his wives' hearts. He revealed to the Igbimuabada that he had witnessed Ebony's secret meetings long before the Ghana trip ever happened. He told the council that he had seen her heart wandering toward the shortcuts of the dark world offered by Baba Bambushe, and he had waited, hoping she would choose the path of the Ogunjaye ancestors instead. You say I neglected her, the king said, his voice echoing with a cold authority. But did I not provide the finest silks, the best protection, and a place of honor? What she was starving for was not my attention, but a power that she wanted to use against me.
This statement sent a wave of shock through the Ife elders. The great lion was making it clear. Ebony's hunger for the supreme crown made her deaf to any warning he could have given. He wasn't indifferent, he was observant. He was watching a queen turn into a spiritual rebel. The intensity reached a boiling point when the king addressed the royal trap accusation. He asked the elders, if I wanted her to fail, why would I allow a sacred tree of death to be planted in my own backyard? Why would I risk the future of the throne just to catch a wife in a lie? He argued that his silence was a sacred test. He believed that if he used force to stop her, she would only find more dangerous, hidden ways to fulfill her dark ambitions. He wanted her to prove her loyalty, but instead, she proved her desperation. My crown gist friends and families, can you feel the emotion in the king's words? He mentioned how he saw the jewel being attacked daily by unseen forces, yet the jewel stayed in her place of prayer. He compared the two, saying that while Ebony was busy traveling to Ghana to find a sacred tree to lock his fruitfulness, the jewel was busy building an altar of peace. He asked the family, why should I protect a woman who is actively looking for ways to destroy the very man she calls her husband? Is that a wife or a spy from the darkness? The family of Ebony tried to shout him down, claiming his words were just a cover-up, but the Ife elders silenced them with a heavy staff. The great lion was not done. He revealed that he knew the exact moment the sacred tree touched the soil of Ife. He knew about the oaths taken in the dead of night. He said he didn't set a trap. She built a cage for herself out of her own envy and invited Baba Bambushe to hold the key. The suspense is now shifting completely. The council is starting to see that this is not just about a husband who didn't love enough. It is about a spiritual coup that failed. The great lion has turned the table. He is no longer the accused. He is now the witness to a crime against the throne. He told the Igbimo Abada that if the family wants to talk about neglect, they should talk about how they neglected to tell their daughter that the heart of a king is won through character, not through the roots of a sacred tree.
The lead elder of the Igbimo Abada, a man whose face is hidden behind the ancient veil of tradition, stood up with the help of his staff. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity as he looked from the family of Ebony to the great lion. He began to speak, and his voice sounded like the rolling of distant thunder. He declared that in the history of Ogunjaye, a king is indeed the spiritual cover for his household, but a king is not a god who can force a human heart to love what is right. The council ruled that while the great lion's silence was deep, it was not the cause of Ebony's downfall. They stated that the spiritual hunger and the unrealistic expectations that the family admitted Ebony had were the true roots of this wahala. The elders told the family plainly, you cannot bring a daughter to the palace and expect the king to be both her husband and her conscience. If she chose to listen to the whispers of Baba Bambushe and cross borders for a sacred tree, she must eat the bitter fruit of her own harvest. This was a massive blow to the family's case. The council then addressed the emotional abandonment charge. They ruled that a king's heart belongs to whoever gives him peace. They stated that the great lion's love for the jewel is not a crime against Ebony, but a natural result of the atmosphere each woman created around the throne. They told the family that the great lion did not set a trap. Instead, the family and Ebony were the ones who allowed a bloodline member like Baba Bambushe to operate in a way that threatened the peace of the kingdom. As the final judgment was passed, the elders ordered a total spiritual cleansing of the palace. They declared that the sacred tree must be located, uprooted, and burnt to ashes to clear the spiritual atmosphere. They warned the family of Ebony that trying to blame the living deity for the consequences of their own choices is a dangerous game that could lead to their total exile. The great lion stood up, his regalia shining with a new light of victory, while the family of Ebony left the chamber with their heads bowed in total shame.
My crown gist friends and families, the lesson is clear. You cannot blame the sun for the darkness you choose to walk into. The great lion has been vindicated and the jewel remains the pillar of peace by his side. The attempt to use neglect as a weapon has failed and the palace is finally breathing a sigh of relief. Before we wrap up this heavy update, my crown gist friends and families, I must remind you that everything we have discussed here, from the secret council meetings to the stories about the sacred tree, are all rumors and alleged reports making the rounds on social media. These are unverified stories from the digital streets and should not be taken as absolute facts or used to judge anyone's character. We are simply here to bring you the gist as the public is discussing it. The secrets of the palace are deep, and as the situation develops, you know where to find the truth. What do you think about the final judgment? Do you believe the great lion was right to let Ebony learn the hard way? Drop your comments below and let's get the conversation started.